Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I'm Dr. Asma Sadiq from Anatomy Department, and today I'm going to start with you the new chapter of General Anatomy, that is the general aspects of joints. So what is a joint by definition? Joint is the meeting point or union of two or more than two bones or even cartilage. If unite together, they are making the joint or articulation. Greek terminology for the joint is arthrons. So that's why we use the articulation and the articular surfaces of the bones together. They make the joints. And the study of the joint is known as arthrology. So at these joints where they unite together and they make the articulation, either they provide the stable union between the bones in skeleton without any movement, or there is free movement which allow. So the classification of the joints, we can classify the joints according to the uniting tissue, the union of the joint, and this union has different tissues which unites the bone together. Then we label them, classify the joints according to the uniting tissue, or we can also classify the joints according to the grade of the movements at different joints. So what is the classification and the types of the joints according to the uniting tissue? So if the bones, these are united together by a fibrous tissue in between two bones, then these are known as fibrous joints. And if the union is by the cartilage, then we label them the cartilaginous joints. And we further classify these cartilaginous joints into the primary cartilaginous and secondary cartilaginous joints. And if there is a synovial cavity, synovial membrane, and having the synovial fluid in it, and that has the joint cavity, we label them the synovial joints. So according to the uniting tissue, we are dividing the joint into fibrous joints, number 1. Number 2, the cartilaginous joint. As name is indicating, there is a cartilage in between the joint uniting the two bones together, and the synovial joints having the synovial cavity along with the synovial fluid. So here you can see easily that the fibrous joints are the one which are only present in the skull, and these sutures which you have studied, these are having just intervening fibrous tissue which joins the two bones or more than two bones together, and these are the joints where there is no movement possible at all. And the cartilaginous variety, here a bit some movement can be recognizable, and these are the tissue. Here you can see in between the vertebra that intervertebral disc that has that cartilage present in it, and you have studied previously. This is the fibrocartilage present in between the vertebrae making intervertebral discs. So this union which is by this cartilage is making it the cartilaginous variety, and here a slight movement is possible. And the one here, the joints where you have seen the cavities lined by a synovial membrane having synovial fluid in it, they are responsible for the full movement at these joints. So these are freely mobile synovial joints. So according to the grade of the movement, these joints are classified as synarthrosis, which is completely solid joint having the fibrous tissue in it, as you have seen in the fibrous joints, as in here the sutures in the skull. So here no movement is possible at all. So these are immovable joints which are synarthrosis. Then is the amphiarthrosis, where you have seen the cartilaginous tissue present in between the bones and making them union possible. So these are the amphiarthroses where slight movement is possible. And the diarthroses are the one which are the cavitated synovial joints, and they are showing the free movements and they are freely mobile joints. So according to the grade of movement, immovable synarthrosis joints. Slight movements are shown at the amphiarthrosis joints, which are the cartilaginous variety, and the diarthrosis, here the free movement is possible. So again, the joints, these are immovable synarthrotic or synarthrosis variety, where the joints are fused only for the strength and though there is no movement at all. They are immovable joints. The slightly movable joints are the amphiarthrosis. They bind together with the help of the cartilaginous tissue and limited movement is possible at these joints. And the freely mobile joints, which are diarthrosis, they allow free movements, and these are the joints which are synovial joints, and mostly in the upper limb you will see the joints of the upper limb and lower limb, they are mostly for the movement purpose, so they are the synovial joints. Now what are the fibrous joints? These fibrous joints, as by definition, you have seen that they are going to have the fibrous tissue which is uniting the two bones together. So here that tissue is also very minimal, and these are classified again into the sutures, the syndesmosis and gymphoses. Now what are these sutures? As you have mostly seen them in the skull, the sagittal suture, coronal suture, and now we will study in detail about different types and varieties of the sutures as well. And the syndesmosis, which is basically, you can see, is a coracoclavicular joint. Here the coracoid process is attached with the clavicle by coracoclavicular ligament. That fibrous variety, just the fibrous tissue is uniting the bones together. This is a syndesmosis, and also the typical example of syndesmosis is the inferior tibiofibular joint, in which the lower end of tibia and fibula unite together by a fibrous tissue. And the gymphoses, these are the peg and socket-like joint, in which the peg-like tooth that is going to be it is fitted into a socket of the bone. As you have seen the alveolar process and the alveolar sockets in the maxilla and mandible, which is fitting these tooth into these sockets, these are the gymphoses. So this tooth is also hard tissue, so that tooth is fitted into its socket, making it gymphoses. So these all are the varieties of the fibrous joints, and one by one now we will discuss in detail all these types of the fibrous joints. So all these fibrous joints, as you have seen, these are the immovable, the fixed variety joints. Again, we are going to revise here. The sutures, in which the joints held together by interconnecting fibrous tissue, they interlock them together, and also after age this fibrous tissue become ossified. It is having osteogenic property, and after 20s this is going to become ossified, and this fibrous tissue also disappears in between the suture. So most of the time in the skull you will see there will be no fibrous tissue, as this is going to become disappear. So this is a typical tibiofibular joint which is held together by the fibrous tissue. So this fibrous tissue is uniting the lower end of fibula with the tibia. That is typical syndesmosis variety. And in the gymphoses, the peg in a socket means there is a tooth which is fitted into the socket formed by the alveolar process of maxilla or mandible, and there is periodontal ligament which is helping to hold that tooth into that socket. So this is that ligament inside, which is periodontal ligament, that is helping to hold that tooth into the socket, making it a typical glymphosis. Now, what is a structure of a suture? Student, that is very important. Please mark it important because sometime there is a question on the write a note on the structure of the sutures. So for the structure of the sutures, you must remember that definitely a suture that must be between two bones. So here you can see this is a bone number 1 and this is the bone number 2. So these two bones, these are going to unite together with the help of the fibrous tissue in a suture. As now you have know that the sutures are the example of fibrous variety of the joints. So here must be some fibrous tissue. So that intervening, that middle component which is helping to unite the two bones in a suture together, that middle layer is the sutural ligament. So this is a fibrous sutural ligament. Now you have seen that all the bones peripherally, these are going to have the outer fibrous protective covering which is known as the periosteum. So here this whole component which is covering a bone, that is a periosteum. And if you recall your previous knowledge, that you have seen the periosteum structurally has two layers. The one layer, that is the layer adjacent and close to the osseous bony tissue of the bone, that has osteogenic capacity. And you can see that this is covering all along the edges of the edges of the skull bone, which is participating in the suture formation. So these edges of the skull bone which has to form that sutural joint, it is also having that intervening and wrap of this osteogenic as well as outer fibrous layer of the periosteum. So both layers of the periosteum, these are also covering along the edges of the bone which are participating in the suture formation. So this other bone is also going to have the same periosteal tissue along with its recognizable two layers. That inner one along that osseous bony tissue is the osteogenic layer, that is known as cambial layer. So this cambial layer is also along the edges of that bone, and this outer fibrous layer that continues into this edge, that is known as capsular layer. So now if you see here that for making a fibrous component of a joint along with that middle sutural ligament, there is also the fibrous component of the capsular and cambial layer of the periosteum covering that bones together. So now you can see that this is the bone number 1 having its cambial layer, then is its capsular layer, then there is intermediate uniting tissue known as middle layer or the sutural ligament, and then you can see there is again the fibrous layer and cambial layer of the other bone which has to unite in that suture. So in the sutural component you have to write about all these layers, and this osteogenic layer, remember we label it that this is the cambial layer, and the outer one fibrous layer is the capsular layer. So there is the cambial, capsular layer and the middle layer, then again the capsular and the cambial layer of the other bone. These are periosteal component. Now you can also see that here this edges which are the free edges of the bone, here you can see this is the extension of the fibrous layer of periosteum. So this is bridging and uniting the free edges at the peripherally. So here we label this is the uniting layer. So the uniting layer is bridging the two bones together at its peripheral aspect. So at the free ends you see this uniting layer, which is extension of the fibrous layer of periosteum. So it blends the periosteum, the fibrous layer of the periosteum of one bone blends with the unite with the fibrous component of the other bone. So this tissue, which is that fibrous tissue uniting the two bones together, it can replace into the bony tissue later on. So after the age of 20s, it shows the osteogenic property. As you have seen, this cambial layer is having osteogenic characteristic. So this osteogenic capability of this cambial layer initiate, and it has to begin the osteogenic activity in all this fibrous layer, and now this fibrous tissue is replaced into the osseous bony tissue, which is known as process of synostosis. So the simple closure and fusion of that bony tissue and disappearance of the fibrous tissue, that is known as synostosis, which starts at the age of 20 and then it continues till all the bones and their fibrous tissue is replaced into the bony component. So in the skull, most of the time you will not appreciate any fibrous tissue actually, but rather you will see that all the sutures, they are replaced by the bony tissue. I will show you in the coming slides. Now what are different types of the sutures? These are the plain variety, squamous, serrated, limbus, denticulate, and shindalysis. So now have a look on the structure of different classification of the sutures, and this classification is based on the shape of the joining edges. So according to the shape of joining edges of the two bones, we classify them. Number one, the plain sutures. In this case, the union of the two bones, they are showing the plane surfaces. So the edges of one bone uniting with the other bone, they are plane and perpendicular to each other, and they are united by this green one, the sutural ligament, and these are plain sutures. Now the edges are, if beveled, you can see here, these are not plane and perpendicular, rather they are having this sharp edge here. So this is the beveled margin of one bone. It is reciprocally fitted into the beveled margin of the other bone. So this is the sharp beveled margins which are overlapped together and making the squamous variety of the suture. So in squamous sutures, the margins of the bones are beveled. The serrated suture is showing typical saw-like margins. So the saw-like projections and then depressions, these are indicating that these are the serrated or saw-like edge of the one bone is fitted into the reciprocally saw-like edges and projections of the other bone. So these bones are having the saw-like presentation, so we label them the serrate sutures. Then in the denticulate suture, as name is indicating, that in this case the opposing bones which are making the joint together, these are having the tooth-like projections. So the margins of the bones are having tooth-like projections and then alternating depressions. As you can see here in this one bone, this is the tooth-like projection and then alternating socket. This is the socket, and then again projection and sockets. So these are going to accommodate the tooth-like projection and sockets of other bone. So that one is, if you look at that the basal end of each socket is narrow, its basal end is narrow, and if you see its free end of the socket, that is wider as compared to the basal end. So the socket is representing just a triangular shape with narrow basal end and wider free surface, and these are fitted together making the denticulate suture. Here that is the example of shindalysis. In case of shindalysis, there is a long wedge-like, this is a long wedge-like surface of one bone, and into a single groove of another bone, this long wedge-like, this is a, if you see the example, typical example is the rostrum of the sphenoid bone making that wedge-like surface. It is fitted into a single groove or a cavity formed by the another bone, as here this is the vomer bone. Okay, I will show you the examples of each variety. So here this is, you can see the plain suture that is typically seen in intermaxillary and interpalatine sutures, the suture between two maxilla and between two palatine. So here actually I am showing you the interpalatine suture. This is the palatine bone, and again this is the palatine process of maxillary bone. So this suture where you can see perpendicular plain edges of both bones which are making that union and articulation. So this is the intermaxillary or interpalatine suture, that is typical variety of plain sutures. So in the squamous variety, as you have seen, that is showing the beveled margins. That is typically the parieto-temporal, or you can say the temporoparietal suture. So this is the parietal bone, this one, that is showing you the parietal bone, and here this is the temporal bone. So you can see here that this is showing you the beveled margin. The beveled margin of the bone is fitted into the beveled margin of the other bone. So the parietal bone is also showing that beveled margin, and this is here typically showing you the articulation between the temporoparietal bone having beveled margin. So we label them. So the serrated suture, in which you have seen typical saw-like projections of bone with saw-like projections and then depressions. So there you can see the zigzag, one bone margin and then other bone is also showing you the same reciprocal saw-like margins. This is the suture between two parietal bone, that is sagittal suture. So the sagittal suture is typical serrated suture showing the saw-like margins which are going to fit together making that joint. Now is the denticulate suture, in which is the lambdoid suture is the example. That here you can see the sagittal suture from front and the occipital bone that is united here at the lambdoid suture. You can appreciate here very easily these tooth-like projections and tooth-like projection and sockets which are going to fit into the same denticulate sort of projection and edges of other bone. So the lambdoid suture is typical example of denticulate suture. Here this is lambdoid suture. Now as the shindalysis, in this case we have seen that this is just showing you the groove or the socket, which is a single groove formed by the ala of the vomer bone, and into this vomer bone the wedge-like rostrum of sphenoid bone fit together. In the previous slide you have seen that the wedge-like bone is fitted into that groove, and this is typical example between the ala of the vomer and sphenoid, that is vomero-sphenoid suture, and this is known as shindalysis, that is shindalysis. The sutures in the skull bones of the infants or newborn, they are different as compared to the adult, as in the skull of the newborn, the bones, they are uniting together, and here you can appreciate some wider gaps which are filled up with the more fibrous tissue, and they are just filled up with the membranous or fibrous tissue, and making here the soft spot. So these are basically seen on the skull cap or the calvaria of the skull bone here anteriorly, which is the union point of the frontal bone with the parietal bone. So here the sagittal suture here, which is between the parietal bone, and the coronal suture, that is between the frontal and parietal bone here. The union point of this coronal and sagittal suture here, you can see this wide gap seen anteriorly. This is called anterior fontanelle, and this is the area of bregma. So at this bregma, which is the union of the coronal and sagittal suture in midline, that is showing in infant skull the anterior fontanelle, which is a wide gap filled up with the fibrous or membranous tissue. Posteriorly again here, which is at the lambdoid suture or lambda, here again you can see a bit wider gap, but it is smaller as compared to the anterior one. That is the posterior fontanelle. The anterior fontanelle is disappeared and fused at the age of 18 months, and this posterior fontanelle that disappears very earlier at the age of 2 to 3 months. Also at these lateral aspects where different bones they are uniting, showing these lateral fontanelle, these are 2 on each side. So in total you are going to have 6 fontanelle, 2 lateral on each side, there are 4, then is the anterior, 5th one, and the 6th one is that posterior fontanelle. So there are 4 lateral and 1 anterior and 1 posterior fontanelle, and in total in infant skull you are going to see the 6 fontanelle. So these are areas where are the wider gap between the bones, and they are filled up with the membranous tissue. These fontanelle are going to have different, as you have seen, that these enables the fetal skull to modify its sides and shape as it passes through the birth canal. So due to the presence of these fontanelle, the bones they can overlap to each other when the baby has to pass through the birth canal during vaginal delivery. And later on it permits the rapid growth of the brain during infancy. So they are providing a room and a space as they are going to accommodate now the growing brain. So they allow the brain to grow as they can expand because of the presence of these soft spots. Then it is also going to help in the estimation of the brain development by looking into its closure time. As I have told you, anterior fontanelle closes at the age of 18 months and the posterior fontanelle closes 2 to 3 months age. The anterior fontanelle, that is now the on the upper side on the calvaria, it serves as a landmark for the withdrawal of the blood, as it is just close to the superior sagittal sinus. So from the superior sagittal sinus, for any analysis, if veins are not visible, then you can withdraw the blood for any analysis from superior sagittal sinus by approaching through that anterior fontanelle. And also these fontanelle, they are very suggestive, as if it is depressed in the infants or in the newborn. That depressed fontanelle indicate there is dehydration. So whenever there is dehydration and the water volume that is less, leading to the depressed anterior fontanelle, and if there is increased intracranial pressure, that intracranial pressure, it is going to rise because of increase in the cerebrospinal fluid or increased pressure in the CSF. That is indicating that there is underlying increased intracranial pressure, which is now bulging that fontanelle. So the bulging fontanelle or increased level of fontanelle is indicating and suggestive of increased intracranial pressure. Also, you can see that bulge normally when the baby is crying, but if it is persistent, that bulge and increased fontanelle, that is suggestive of raised intracranial pressure because of any CSF problem. So these are the clinical significance of the fontanelle in infant skull, and they are very important. Please note it down, make us 2-star on that topic, because it can be seen in the written what are different fontanelle and what are their clinical significance. So on that case you have to write all these. And we are typically, I'm talking here about the anterior fontanelle because that anterior fontanelle is the one which is going to close later. That is going to close at the age of the 18 months. So till that age of 18 months, the anterior fontanelle, that is very helping for all these informations. So the metopic sutures are the sutures which are present at the time of birth, or these are present in infancy, and these are later on they disappear and they are making a single bone. So these are the sutures which are present at birth, separating the bones into two halves, but later on these sutures disappear and they form a single bone, as you can see as in case of the frontal bone. So here in the frontal bone you can see two halves of the frontal bone, and in between there is that union or a suture. So this is just present before birth and in the infancy, that is present at the time of birth, but later on that disappears, that unite together, leaving only a single bone behind. So we label this as a single frontal bone, that is the. Now the very important another component which you must remember, that is the synostosis. So what is the synostosis? For that you must know that initially you have seen that there is a union of the skull bones together by the fibrous connective tissue, and that is going to have the sutural tissue. In between these sutures there is the fibrous tissue, and these sutural ligaments are making the sutures. But here I have also told you as I was showing you the structure of a suture, that there was the osteogenic layer of the periosteum which is having the osteogenic capability. So when there is the individual that reaches to the age of maturity, the cells of that osteogenic tissue, they become active and they begin to form the bone tissue within the sutural ligament. So in the sutural connective tissue, in that sutural fibrous membranous tissue, the osteogenic component and osteogenic cells, they become active and they are going to form the bony tissue, and gradually the connective tissue is replaced by the bony tissue, as you have seen in this skull. So here all the connective tissue or fibrous component that is disappeared, that means it become ossified by osteogenic characteristic of the tissue, and then that become completely ossified. And finally when all the sutural connective tissue it become replaced by that osseous tissue, then we label that this is the process of synostosis. So simply you can say that the fusion of the skull bones and the skull suture, that is known as synostosis, in which that fibrous tissue is replaced by the osseous tissue. And here you now have seen all the sutures, they have showing you the synostosis. And this synostosis, that is mostly going to begin, it is going to start and begin towards the internal surface of skull cap and calvaria, and it started at the age of the 20s. So after 20 it progress, and then this is going to continue till all of the bones and sutural components that is going to become ossified. So this process of replacement of that fibrous uniting tissue of the sutures into the bony tissue that is known as. So now you have seen what is a syndesmosis. That is the one which is the union of the bones together by means of a fibrous tissue. Although this fibrous tissue is longer and more in amount as compared to you have seen in the sutures. So this is inferior tibiofibular joint, typically showing you the syndesmosis. And also the middle tibiofibular and middle radioulnar joints, in which radius ulna and tibia fibula unite together by means of the fibrous interosseous membrane. So you can also give the example of these joints, which are the fibrous union of two bones. And the ligamentum flavum, which is between the vertebral arches of the vertebra, that is also making the syndesmosis. And I have also shown you the picture in previous slide, the coraco-clavicular joint, which is between the coracoid process and the clavicle, that is typically by a fibrous tissue. So now what is the gymphosis? As you have seen that here the peg-like, tooth-like structure that is fitted into a socket which is formed by the other bone. So one hard tissue here, that is this tooth, it is fitted into the alveolar sockets of the maxilla in case of upper jaw and mandible in the lower jaw, and these are united together by the membranous tissue, that is the periodontal membrane. So this is the periodontal membrane which is fitting and uniting the tooth into its respective alveolar sockets. So this peg fitted into a socket is a typically example of. So here I end up with today's lecture, which is just about the classification and different types of the joints, along with one of its variety, that is the fibrous joint. So if you have any question and any query, feel free to contact me and clear your concepts side by side and send me your assignments. Thank you very much.